Hey there, I'm Joe Carter. If you've ever popped the hood and thought, where do I even start? You're in good company. Around here, we take the mystery out of car repair, one fix at a time. Whether you're a beginner or just looking to sharpen your skills, there's something here for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're into learning without the headaches. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get into it.
Paradoxically, but few car enthusiasts clearly understand the fundamental difference between horsepower and Newton meters in which torque is measured. In common usage, the definition of engine torque is directly related to the dynamics of acceleration and horsepower to the maximum speed. To put it quite crudely, the wording is quite satisfactory, although it does not explain the whole essence of physical processes. To fill the theoretical gaps, as well as to get a clear idea of what is the torque of the engine, you will help the material below. Torque. In physics terms, the concept of torque is easily grasped by knowing the principle of gaining advantage from the use of a lever. Calculated by adding the forces applied to the lever, weight of the load, to the length of the arm, lever, Newton meters, show the potential amount of work to be done. In the case of an internal combustion engine, the weight of the load is the force with which the piston makes reciprocating motion. After combustion of the fuel-air mixture, the length of the arm will be nothing but the stroke of the piston, the distance from TDC to NMT. The rotational force is generated only during the operating stroke. As a vehicle is a complex machine, the engine torque is influenced by a number of characteristics of other components. The driving wheels of the vehicle will only receive maximum traction when the interaction of the mechanisms is optimal. The torque peak is reached at engine speeds when the combustion chamber is filled with the working mixture, combustion products are burned and exhaust gases are discharged with minimal mechanical losses. For each engine, this parameter varies depending on the design features and the type of fuel used. Power output. The formula for calculating power in kilowatts is P equals mkp asterisk n 9549, where n is the number of crankshaft revolutions per minute, mkp is the torque on the crankshaft. A simple logical inference leads us to the fact that the power of the motor depends on the number of revolutions. Torque-to-power ratio. The graph clearly demonstrates the fact that the tractive effort on the wheels is not directly proportional to the number of revolutions or power. The engine reaches peak torque as early as 3000 rpm. Maximum power is available at 5500 rpm. In both cases, the revs continue to rise, but the output drops. For the designated engine, the revolutions from 2500 to 5000 are the most optimal. In this mode of operation, the torque shelf close to the maximum value will allow to fully realize the potential of the motor throughout the entire segment. The given graph is an example of civil adjustment of modern gasoline engines. The advantages are obvious: stable power gain, sufficiently wide shelf, with smooth increase and decay. Tuning of this type allows to achieve elasticity of the engine. Such work is provided not only programmatically, ECU tuning, but also by the use of various auxiliary technologies, variable phases of gas distribution. The difference in power characteristics depends largely on the design of the intake and exhaust system. For example, engines equipped with a turbocharger at the point of exit to the boost get a significant gain in dynamics. Torque and horsepower of such models significantly exceed their atmospheric counterparts. What is horsepower? The observant reader is likely to be suspicious of the fact that the much-loved horsepower has not yet been heard. The point is that horsepower is just a tribute to the fashion of those times when mechanisms had to prove their superiority over the living labor force. Therefore, the superiority, ability to perform a certain amount of work, was conveniently expressed in terms of the potential of 1 horse. In fact, 1 horsepower is the force that is sufficient to lift a 75 kilograms load 1 meter in 1 second. In order to get horsepower, it is enough to multiply the value of power in kilowatts by a coefficient of 1.36. The bottom line: the power of the motor depends on the torque. HP is designed to achieve maximum speed. A car with a large number of racers under the hood will be able to develop an impressive speed, but it will take a very long time. tractive effort determines how quickly the engine can develop its maximum power. A large number of Newton meters allows a more favorable use of the engine potential. Such motors can bear loads more easily. The wider the torque band, the more elastic the engine and the more pleasant the car is to drive, due to the peculiarities of diesel engines, high compression ratio, slow combustion of the mixture, as well as the use of modern systems of additional air injection. Diesel engines have more torque from the lowest revolutions. Simply put, Newton meters are your car's power, and kilowatts are its endurance. Related articles, discussion. I wonder how one can draw such conclusions. 1. Motor power is a function of torque, is its derivative. The power of a motor at measured RPM is the product of torque by the RPM at which it is measured, and by a constant dimensional conversion factor. i.e., power is not a derivative of torque, the product of torque by RPM, where RPM is just as significant. 2. Tractive effort determines how fast the motor can develop its maximum power. It is not the effort that determines how fast the RPMs can be reached to the maximum power value, but the motor design. For example, short-stroke motors spin up faster. 3. A large number of Newton meters allows you to use the engine's potential more advantageously. Why is that? And what potential? For, simply put, Newton meters are your car's power, and kilowatts are its endurance. Simply put, kilowatts are the power that the motor can generate at the wheels and the top speed. And Newton meters are the required gear ratios in the transmission and the range of engine speeds at which it delivers its power for the desired driving style. To summarize, motors are built for specific cars. And the choice of balance between torque and RPM at which it is achieved depends on the car. Alexander Kevliak, thank you for your comments and your desire to make the information on our resource more reliable. I am surprised how one can make such conclusions. 1. Motor power depends on torque, is its derivative. The power of the motor at measured RPM is the product of torque by the RPM at which it is measured and by a constant factor of dimensional conversion. i.e., power is not a derivative of torque, the product of torque by RPM, where RPM is no less significant. Your remark would be extremely relevant if the article lacked the formula for calculating engine power. P equals mkp asterisk n 9549, where n is the number of crankshaft revolutions per minute, mkp is the torque on the crankshaft, ibid, a simple logical inference leads us to the fact that the power of the motor depends on the number of revolutions. As we understand it, the claim is only about the concept of derivative. We admit that the wording is incorrect, but a careful reading of the article does not affect the essence of understanding the question posed. Power is not derivative of torque, if we adhere to the generally accepted interpretations of this concept. In any case, the essence of the statement of the dependence of motor power on torque does not change its validity, and this is what is written before the brackets. 2. On the tractive effort depends on how quickly the engine can develop its maximum power, not on the effort depends on the speed of gaining speed to the value of maximum power, but on the design of the motor. For example, short-stroke motors spin up faster. The faster the torque build-up, and the sooner the flat maximum torque shelf is reached, the sooner the engine will reach peak power. Quotes from the article, the graph clearly demonstrates the fact that tractive effort at the wheels is not directly proportional to the number of revolutions or power. Since a car is a complex mechanism, engine torque is affected by a number of characteristics of other components and units. The driving wheels of the vehicle will only receive maximum traction when the interaction of the mechanisms is optimal. The torque peak is reached at engine speeds when the combustion chamber is filled with the working mixture, combustion products are burned and exhaust gases are discharged with minimal mechanical losses. For each engine this parameter varies depending on the design features and the type of fuel used. The difference in power characteristics depends largely on the design of the intake and exhaust system. For example, engines equipped with a turbocharger at the point of entry to the boost get a significant gain in dynamics. 3. A large number of Newton meters allows more favorable use of the engine's potential. Why? And what potential? The flatter the torque shelf, and the earlier peak torque is reached, the more tractable and supple the engine. For, simply put, Newton meters are your car's power, and kilowatts are its endurance. Simply put, kilowatts are both the power the motor can generate at the wheels and the top speed. And Newton meters are the required gear ratios in the transmission and the range of engine speeds at which the engine delivers its power for the desired driving style. That's why it's plain language, it allows for vagueness of wording. Again, the formula for calculating power in kilowatts given in the article, P equals mkp asterisk n 9549, where n is the number of crankshaft revolutions per minute, mkp is the torque on the crankshaft, allows us to understand that it is impossible to imagine kilowatts without Newton meters. What gear ratios are we talking about if the engine power can be measured, what is called, at the flywheel? To summarize, motors are created for specific cars. And the choice of balance between torque value and revolutions at which it is achieved depends on the car. Are there statements in the article that contradict your conclusion? Torque is dependence of horsepower on kilowatts, difference between horsepower and torque. In conclusion, understanding the difference between torque and horsepower is essential for anyone interested in automotive performance. Torque measures the twisting force that helps a vehicle accelerate, while horsepower represents the rate at which that work is done. Both are crucial for different aspects of a vehicle's performance, with torque providing the initial push and horsepower sustaining speed. By grasping these concepts, you can make more informed decisions when it comes to choosing a vehicle that meets your needs, whether for towing, racing, or everyday driving. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video has clarified these important automotive terms for you.